Hello, consumers. I'm Eltari, the professional gamer, and this is another PAX Friday review, the show where we talk about all of the fun, interesting, new, and exciting information that has dropped for PAX Day over the last week. This week, we got a total of 3 screenshots, and we're also going to start a conversation on what crafting in PAX Day is going to look like, what we know so far, as well as what we would like to see in the future. So if all of that sounds interesting to you, please don't forget to like this video and share it with any of your friends who might be interested in PAX Day. And welcome back to the 414 of you wonderful consumers out there and the nearly 60% of you who have not yet decided to hit that subscribe button. Let's go ahead and get on into the new information. All right, so we have 3 total screenshots to be going through today. The first one that was dropped is just a nice image of a road. We might have actually seen this road before. Then right here, we have a image of a side of a house. Then right here, we have an image of what looks to be a equipment inspector. You can see here it's a fine leather brigandine. So just another nicely crafted leather armor set. Then there were a couple of actually interesting things that I noticed here. First of all, this building structure right here, we haven't seen this type of building set texture before. It doesn't look like it's a ruined type of building. This actually looks like it's cinder blocks or some kind of marble block or stone block of some sort. And this looks like it's potentially player built. I definitely see churches or castles being built with something like this, with that kind of texture. So it'll be cool to see what the rest of that structure is in some time. But the last interesting thing here is the health bar. So we have the health bar. We know that this is health. We're pretty sure that this is a stamina bar. But this might be the first time we've seen this third bar that's down here. Now, a couple of people have mentioned that this might be a mana bar of sorts. Now, we haven't seen a mana bar before, so I don't know if this is that. But it would be very interesting if that's the case. I know that the developers are still very much so working on their combat system and stuff like this. So it is very possible that mana is going to be a resource in the game, or there's going to be some kind of additional resource other than health and stamina that players are going to have to manage as a part of combat. And that's what that bar could be. And that is it for the new screenshots for this week. All right, so then for the last section of this video, what I wanted to go over just really quickly is everything that we know about crafting. Now, the reason for me bringing up crafting in this PAX Friday review is because over the last week, a lot of the community devs like Olam have been inside the PAX Day Discord chat, and they've been talking quite frequently about crafting disciplines, the kind of crafting loop that other players would like to see, and what they like, and generating just general conversation about crafting and the crafting system. So that being said, I think it would be a really nice time to start a conversation on different crafting systems that exist in MMORPGs and what I've seen has worked really well in the past, or heard has worked really well in the past, and what I'd like to see from PAX Day specifically. Now, to be clear, we don't actually have any real solid information from Mainframe on how crafting works. We haven't really seen crafting that much in game, and all we know is that the resources are going to be valuable. There's going to be a reason for players to do trading, and the way that skills and all of that work in regards to crafting are going to require players to cooperate. So with that knowledge, we can talk about what we think we might see in PAX Day, and then what some other systems in MMORPGs have done well, and what we'd like to see if we had a choice in the matter. So first things first, when it comes to crafting, we know that materials are going to all be things that are collected by players, and there is going to be an active economy of materials and resources that are changing hands to different people for different crafting disciplines. So you could technically be just a person who gets their full income's worth of money or resources or whatever you might need through bartering by just going into the woods and chopping trees down. So that being said, you'll be able to go and gather resources and be a part of this supply chain in one way or another. In terms of actual crafting, we do know that there is going to be a skill-based system. So what that means is you're probably going to have some level that's associated with a type of crafting discipline. And in order to be able to either make better stuff or to more effectively make any stuff, you're going to have to level that particular crafting discipline up. Now, the interesting thing with Pax Dei is that all of these resources that exist throughout the entire economy are going to be things that are connected very specifically, and people will need these resources regardless. So it's nice to hear that if you're a crafter, you're not going to just make 100 basic swords to level up to level 2 so that you can make another 150 a little bit better basic swords until you get to a final level at some point, and then you can actually make the stuff that people want. In Pax Dei, everything is going to be a desirable material to some degree or another. Now, a basic crafted sword might be something that's useful because you can make a lot of it. The resources required to make it are really low, and the amount of time that's required to make it is a really low time. So if you're going out to just do random adventuring and you don't want to lose that super awesome flame sword that's in your inventory, you can go stow that away at your home plot or with your clan or guild hall or wherever you want to put it, and you can go and take a very basic sword out and go and do most of the functions you'd normally do without having to constantly be traveling, knowing that there's a risk that you're just going to get jumped by someone in a PvP zone, or you're going to get killed and you're going to lose your weapon to some PvE mob in some way, shape, or form. And there you are, you're out of a flame sword. If you're just carrying around a basic sword, you don't have to worry about it. So there's going to be an economy for all these different types of resources, and everything should have a place. You could potentially have a blacksmith who makes their entire career in game off of making a basic sword and just doing it really well for a lot of people very cheaply. And that's a possibility. And I think that for games where you have player-driven economies, that's a very important thing, because we get a lot of different MMOs where you end up with a very top-heavy economy. What I mean by that is you'll have a crafting tier system where maybe you have tier 1 through 5 weapons and armor. Well, eventually your game lifespan is going to get to a point where there's more people who need high-level weapons and armor, in other words, tier 5, and there's zero need for tier 1, 2, 3, and 4, because the best weapons that you can get are tier 5. I think it's very important for economies in MMORPGs to still bring importance to lower tier weapons and lower tier gear. And the best way to do that in a survival game is to have risk play a role in what type of gear you're bringing with you for different circumstances. So this is a step in the right direction that I think Mainframe is taking, and I'm excited to see how that is kind of playing out in the future. Now, in terms of actual crafting stations, we've seen a lot of different types of crafting stations, and you can check out all of the videos that I've done in the PAX Fri-Dei review, specifically episode 1, where we see a lot of screenshots and we look at a lot of different crafting stations. Now, some of the stations that we have seen are distillery stations. We've seen leatherworking stations. We've seen a couple of different forges. We've seen a couple of different smithies, and that's just the surface. We've seen things that look like anvils, but also things that kind of look like chopping blocks. There was a charcuterie workbench at some point. I think I remember reading a dev talk about a confessions bench, which might have something to do with religion. So there's a lot of different workbenches that exist in game. How those are all going to play with each other and the sparsity is yet to be seen, and what the UI elements look like inside the crafting system is also a big question that we don't have the answer to yet. So there's a lot still to be desired in terms of information and what we can get from the screenshots and video clips that we've seen so far. That being said, what we would like to see in Pax Dei that we've seen in other MMORPGs. I think that being someone who doesn't really craft a lot in MMOs, that while my expertise in what crafting should look like might be limited, but at the same time, I do know that the biggest issue that a lot of players have is top heaviness when it comes to crafting. So it's great to see that Mainframe's kind of already answered that question by having risk-based gearing, and in certain survival games, sometimes it's better to go with a cheaper weapon that you can lose multiple times in a row and have that supply going than it is to have the best crafted weapons around and then lose it and have a lot of time, effort, and potentially in-game money lost over a small fight that you weren't really expecting to get into. Additionally, there are other aspects of crafting like random rolls and getting specific perks and stuff like that on gear. One thing that we do know is that there's not going to be any kind of gear score, which I think is a very, to be honest, toxic type of game model where you're constantly rolling to try and get a new set of gear at a higher gear score to artificially increase your character's ability. I think that it's really important for Pax Dei to not go in that direction, and it's reassuring that they've already stated there will be no gear score in game. The good part about that is that there's not this kind of lottery style crafting system where you're just putting materials together and rolling your dice and, hey, guess what? You just spent 2 days collecting the resources for this, but you got a low gear score item, or it didn't roll with the right perks or something like that. So one thing that I would like to see in Pax Dei is the ability for you to enchant your weapon. So essentially the degree to which your weapon is enchanted is still affected by your skill, which is probably something that you're going to have to grind out and get better at. But the degree to which your enchantment goes is still determined by your level, but you're still determining the enchantment that's there. It shouldn't just be a random based thing. Now, this also goes back to the ability to find recipes, and we know that going around the world, we are going to uncover mysteries on how to craft, mysteries on where other different resources might be located, or mobs that drop specific loot are located. And having recipes that we're able to find and then craft based off of that recipe is definitely something I could see happening in Pax Dei. And I would like to see it go even a step further, where potentially there are enchantments or different types of perks that we can put on weapons that are from materials or recipes that we find around the world. So those are just a couple of areas that I'd like to see Pax Dei crafting go to. And like I said at the very start of this, we really have no information on how crafting in Pax Dei is going to work. We've seen a lot with regards to buildings and how those work, but we haven't really seen anything when it comes to crafting weapons or armor or jewelry or any of the equipment slots that we've seen so far in any of the videos. So let me know down in the comments below what you like when it comes to crafting and what MMO systems you've really liked in the past, maybe what you haven't liked and what you want or don't want to see in Pax Dei. If this is the kind of content that you like, be sure to like this video and subscribe so that you get notified when we come up with any more new videos for you to consume. Until next week, I am Eltari, the Professional Gamer.